You've counted every calorie, tried every diet, spent hours in the gym, and still something's missing. You want more than just weight loss. You want your energy back. You want your confidence restored. You want a way of living that doesn't feel like punishment. Welcome to Master Your Metabolism, where we cut through the noise, ditch the fads, and give you a real plan to become the healthiest, strongest version of you. Hosted by our team of expert coaches with proven strategies, science-based tips, and real-life encouragement, not just to help lose fat, but actually create a lifestyle that you love. You've tried everything, now try what actually works. This is your turning point. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome. We have the team of Masters Fitness coaches. We have Amanda, Megan, Whitney, David, and of course Calvin. And we are here today to share a little bit about what to do on vacation and how to stay on track when you have a goal. We are going to have Amanda go over the mindset and how you view vacations and times that you are not in your routine. And then we are each going to share our favorite tips and tricks for being able to stay on track. So I'm going to let Amanda take the floor to begin and start us off.
Vacations are actually one of my favorite topics because most people assume that they're going on vacation. This is a time they can take away from their program. That is not the case. As far as I'm concerned, with the black and white thinking, which is what we've talked about a few times here, that, I'm either on plan or I'm not on plan. Things like vacation, things like trips, things like going out to eat don't totally fit in that context. And if we can't fit them in the black or the white, we have a tendency to pick the easier one instead of looking at what we can do in the gray space. How can we keep the black and the white available, but not have it ruin our vacation, right? So one of the things I talk about the most when it comes to vacation is vacations are inherently reward based. So, most of the time you've been working really hard for a period of time. You set up a vacation for you to relax, experience some time with your family, do some fun activities, indulge maybe even a little bit. And that's great. That's all well and good. We deserve vacations. They're very important. But that doesn't mean that we totally throw out our goals as soon as we go on vacation. So a lot of people you'll see as soon as they get to the airport or as soon as they get to the resort, it's like they threw everything out the window that they've been doing for the last 6 months to a year. And because there's this concept of I should be rewarding myself, I'm on vacation, they have a tendency to indulge without thinking about the consequences, come back about 5 to 10 pounds heavier, and then they have to get back into the swing of things. So one of the things I talk about the most with my clients is the concept of a moving train. So we don't ever want the train to stop because it takes a while to get the engine moving again. Now we can slow that train down to like the very slowest speed, but as long as it's still moving, as long as there's momentum, it'll be easier for us to pick up where we left off. As far as the reward focused mentality, I'm not telling you can't look at your vacation as a time when you can reward yourself. I'm not even telling you that it's a time when you can't indulge yourself, but it has to be strategic and planned. And we have to remember at all costs that the goal that we had prior to the vacation and the goal that we'll have post vacation needs to be the same goal that we maintain on vacation. What does that look like? A lot of people will go on vacation and their main thing is that they're going to be, they can eat what they want, they can drink what they want. Let's think about what the actual purpose of a vacation is, right? The purpose of going on vacation with your family or your spouse is to have some downtime, to relax. It's not about to eat your face off. It's not an excuse to indulge in absolutely everything because you know what? I'm on vacation, so fuck it. Am I allowed to say fuck it? Okay.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
okay. So one of the things that I like to tell people to do is there needs to be a strategy going into the vacation. One of the go-tos that I will give people is, let's say you're eating at the hotel's buffet for breakfast, and then you go out to a restaurant for lunch, and then you go out to another restaurant for dinner. You're going to pick one meal out of every single day that is going to be your indulgent meal. And when I say indulgent, that does not mean we pile everything we can on our plate. That does not mean that we finish multiple plate loads. It just means that you're going to pick one meal a day where you can have the burger and fries or the pasta dish, but you're going to eat it in a normal sized portion. So, my number one rule for vacation, particularly places where there are like buffet situations, you get one plate per meal. You do not refill anything on your plate, and your plate cannot be piled to the top. There needs to be at least a little bit of white space between each food on that plate. Use your plate as a guide for how not to overindulge. Now, the other mentality that I encourage on vacation is we're not eating our faces off, right? We're tasting, okay? You're going to another country, you're going to an island, you're going to an all inclusive resort. You're not going to be eating entire meals of these foods. I encourage my clients to use it like a tasting. So get your plate full of a little bit of all the things that you want to try so you don't feel like you've missed out on anything. And you can enjoy that, but you're also not like stuffing your face. I also encourage people. Brooke knows about my tight pants rule. You do not want your stretchy pants when you're on vacation. Your stretchy pants are going to give you the illusion that you have more room. So you want those jeans that are a little bit snug. You want your belly to be hanging over that because it's important for you to feel uncomfortable so you don't overindulge. So it's about tasting things and experiencing things because you don't want that FOMO. You don't want like to watch everybody in your family enjoying things. But if you can have a little bit of this and a little bit of that and you can experience things all the while keeping your goals in mind, then you're going to not feel like you missed out on your vacation. You're also not going to have a 10-pound spike when you get back. So what I tell people to do, which is that single meal. So you pick a meal, let's say it's lunch. The rest of your meals, you want to have protein and veggies. Those are the easiest things to maneuver with. Limit those carbs, limit those fats, but give yourself those experiences. You know, you want to go have some ice cream with your kids? Absolutely. Get it kitty size. You don't need to get the large. That's that black and white thinking, and it's going to come up over and over and over again because we do that as a way to self sabotage, right? So, because we're afraid that we might not make it through the vacation without screwing up, we're going to preemptively set ourselves up to screw up so that when you come back and you're up 10 pounds and Brooke is like, what happened? You're like, well, you know, I knew I couldn't do it anyway. So we're going to like cancel out the self-fulfilling prophecies here because they're not going to serve you. And always just focus on keeping yourself goal oriented and plan for how you're going to feel when you get back. So if you're about to eat your face off at the mac and cheese buffet and, you know, you really are feeling compelled to indulge in something like that, I want you to think about what is this going to do to me and what is it going to do to me when I get back? So really envision how that feels. We've all been there where we go away on a trip and we come back and we're 5 to 10 pounds heavier and you're like, damn, like I wish I hadn't done that. Guess what? You're in control of doing that. So if you preemptively plan and you structure your vacation so that it's not all about the food, but you're still not feeling like you're missing out while incorporating healthy options, you're going to be able to enjoy your vacation with minimal damage. This is a harm reduction model here. So I'm not sitting here telling you that you have to eat lean protein and veggies the entire time you're on vacation by any means, because that's just going to make you resentful and angry. But if you're giving yourself an allowance here or there and you're being smart about it, use the skills you have. Everybody that works with us after a certain point understands their proteins, their fats, and their carbs. Use your brain a little when you're structuring your meals. It doesn't have to be a free-for-all just because it's vacation or because it's a free-for-all for your husband, wife, children, family, and friends. So that's the other piece is keeping that goal top of mind. So something that I will do when I go away, if I struggle, is I will put a motivator as the background on my phone. Sometimes that's my progress photos. Sometimes that's my weight loss chart, my graph. Sometimes it's a message from Calvin and Brooke. And having that available to look at, because when you're on vacation, sometimes it's like, I'm in a totally different world. You're not. You pause time for just a little bit, but you still have to come back to the world that you left. So keep that in mind and really keeping your goal as your focus and figuring out how to implement the things that you want to enjoy without going completely overboard and having that structure. The last piece is you need an accountability buddy. So if that's your spouse, your sister, your kids, I actually have a couple mommies who do, they actually will utilize their kids for this. So you pick a person who you can have kind of keep you accountable. And how do you do this? Well, you tell this person, look, if you see me going for the ice cream, you see me going for the french fries, just remind me that that's not totally what I wanted to do, or remind me about my portions. I guarantee you, every single person that is on a vacation with you cares enough about you to be willing to tap you on the shoulder. But then if they tap you on the shoulder, you can't get mad at them. So we have to remember that, because sometimes accountability stings a little bit. But having somebody with you who can say, hey, that doesn't totally look like what you were saying you wanted to eat today, can be enough of a reminder to say, you know what, you're right. I think I'm going to switch this up because this is not the meal I chose to indulge in. So it's really about strategic planning, and thinking about what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, and when you're going to choose to indulge a little bit and enjoy your vacation.
Awesome. Love it. So many good points. I love the planning part because just like at home, it's the same thing. If you're planning for your job, whatever it is, if you know ahead of time that you have a plan, even if things go a little bit haywire, like you said, it's just harm reduction. I love the thing with the pants, the tight pants, because so many people just wear those, stretchy pants because it helps, but strong work. And then also, I love the point about just really remembering your goals and really thinking about, like, if you go a little bit and it's one meal, okay, one meal, I'm good. And I'm just going to jump back on because I want to feel good when I return. So that's awesome. And I know along with that, when you're traveling with kids, it's a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to turn this over to either Whitney or Megan, whoever wants to jump in, because I know that kids can make it extra challenging, and you really don't want to present it like, oh, I can't have this and I'm restricting myself. There is that balance that you still want to be able to enjoy some things and show them it's okay to have some fun food sometimes, but you really want to keep the majority of things you're doing healthy, because just because we're going away doesn't mean that I don't want to maintain my health. And also, just keeping in mind that you still do want to enjoy the experience, and just educating them and showing them, you know what, we're going away. We have some fun foods every once in a while. So, Whitney, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and share a little bit about with kids and how you handle that.
Yes, I do think that it's important to kind of show them that balance. But then, like you said, with your health, right? Like on the flip side, I know the foods that make me feel good. And if I'm eating garbage for a week long, I'm going to feel like garbage. And if I feel like garbage, my kids are still at 100 and I am going to be irritated.
Yeah.
So I try to keep that in mind too. And it goes back to that whole fuel food versus fun food. And I need to fuel my body for the majority of the time. And I just like to eat, what I like to eat. Now, that being said, taking it back to like planning ahead. So if you're going to be eating out a lot, just take a look at the menus before you go to the restaurants. See what you can order. And I use the same approaches that I tell my clients. Like, make sure that you're ordering things that you can easily identify what the protein is, what the carb is, what the vegetable is. There's always some mystery behind like the fat source and how much. But even that, you can control some places a little bit. A lot of places will steam your vegetables, will cook your protein without oils. Like, you just have to ask, and don't be afraid to ask those things when you go out to a restaurant. And then I do kind of what Amanda said, like I'll pick certain meals or like a treat. I'm more of a dessert person, so like I can eat the same meals constantly, but like if I've got a dessert kind of hanging over my head, I'm like, cool, okay. So I'll save up for that, and then I get to enjoy that with the kids. And another thing that I've found super helpful is, especially with kids, because you're doing a lot of activities and maybe like your vacation doesn't look as just relaxing by the pool as it used to, or, as it might when
Facts.
they're older. So what can happen is like that kind of going through a good portion of the day without eating. And you don't want to get to your room and have all these snacks on hand that are going to totally throw you over. So, when you're getting snacks for the kids, get snacks for yourself that are, that align with your goals too. If you're going to get like the veggies or maybe some pita chips and hummus and fruit, things like that. That way you're not going ham on like some kids gummy bears
Cheetos,
and
yep.
Cheetos and Doritos and all of that. And I've found that that's really helpful, especially with like younger kids. And then another thing that I do for like road trips, this is a lot easier than maybe like flying, is I will prep some food before we go. That way, on the way, we're not necessarily stopping at like all the McDonald's and Burger Kings, on the way down or up or wherever we're going. And it just kind of makes it a little easier to stay on track if I've got the food already there. Just easy to grab stuff and things that you might not necessarily need a microwave for. Like canned tuna. I can eat chicken hot or cold, but some people
Yeah.
might not as well. But even little like sandwiches that fit within your macros and your goals, things like that you can take with you.
Love it. And the road trip too, like when we had to do a road trip and we had to stop, I was stopping, like the gas stations have like Greek yogurt, that you can get. They do have protein bars that you can get. Things that what else were you getting? Beef jerky, turkey jerky on there as well.
Yeah.
Hard-boiled eggs. Like, I don't know, from a gas station, I would probably do that, but like,
Some
I do
okay.
it from like a Whole Foods or a Publix and things like that you can stop at. We've Instacarted at the hotel room as long as we had that, but those are all great tips. Awesome. Megan, I'm going to go ahead and shoot that at you.
All
Any
right. Well,
add-ons?
you just threw out the Instacart. That's our big thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're big Disney people, right? So
Oh, right.
a lot of our vacations, we're going to Florida, we're going to Disney World. And we always usually we have a room that's got a kitchen, right? So while we're on the airplane, we're getting there. We've already got pre-scheduled a delivery of foods because we're not going to eat out every meal. That would be just absolutely insane with 3 kids, right? So we'll have the foods that are going to serve us. And my kids some of them are a little bit older than Whitney's. So I have 11-year-old, an 8 and a 6-year-old, right? So they kind of understand a little bit more how mommy eats, right? And how I'm feeling my body. And I try to teach them. So now they're understanding what is a protein and what is it doing for my body? What is a carb and what's it doing? What's a fat? What's it doing? So they can recognize, how I'm eating and what's fueling me. And I love it when they point out, well, I need a protein in my food, my meal. Like, let me get this. Like, it makes my heart happy.
Yeah, for sure.
That they're recognizing that. And honestly, when we think about kids as well, specifically, and I guess this can apply to adults too, but there's so many things that are put in our foods, especially when we think about our processed foods. I know we have seen a difference in our kids removing some of those processed foods and their behaviors, their attitudes, how they're acting when you take out a lot of those things and you're giving them more of the whole foods, organic foods, less dyes, things like that. There's really a difference there. They function so much better. But yeah, Instacart is huge. We will allow, that one meal, like we've all said, where we might have a little like cheat meal or we're a little bit more indulgent, but we're keeping on track kind of for the rest of those meals. And that's not going to throw you off on a vacation, But like you guys are all saying, you got to keep your goals in the front of your mind there, because it is hard to get back on track, once you get back and if you've been so far off. But it is a real testament, though, coming back and feeling good, feeling like you didn't disservice yourself while you were away. You got to enjoy yourself. You enjoyed your family. You enjoyed the time away. You're not changed. You might be up a pound or two, maybe, but that's fine.
Yep.
You just get right back on board. I love the thing about the tastings. I tell my clients that as well. Doesn't mean you can't have anything while you're away. You can't enjoy yourself, but you're not going to splurge on every meal, every snack. What's important to you? Like Whitney, I'm kind of more of a sweet dessert gal myself too. So I'd rather have my splurge, sorry, as I have a child walking behind me. I'll save my splurge more for that sweet treat, instead of something else that might be more heavier in a fat content or something like that. But, it's whatever you find is your treat, because I know sweets are not for everybody, so, but just goals are huge. And I think controlling the things you can control is huge while away. And whether that's vacation or a business trip, what have you, like, get the steps in. You might not have a gym, so you might have to maybe not do some weight training, depending on where you're going, but you can go for a walk. You can go for extra walks so you can get those steps in while you're away. But so controlling what you can, that's huge.
Yeah, and that's coming from a girl that's in prep right now. So, it's good words. Good words are, and especially the sugar thing that you're talking about. I don't think a lot of parents think that or remember that when you give them sugar when you're on vacation, they are going to be very hard to control. And it's going to make your vacation very unrelaxing. So just that simple one hack of just not overloading them on sugars, is just such a great idea, for just peace of mind, So
Peace of mind for everybody.
yeah, I think
And
so.
then we also have, just traveling. There's a lot of people that travel for work, right? And traveling for work is challenging on its own. And David's like a professional now. So it would be awesome if you can share some of your tips for traveling while you're working, because he has done it as a competitor as well as just a lifestyle. So maybe just sharing some of the things that have helped you when you're on the road.
Sure. What's interesting is there's a common theme among what everybody was saying, and that common theme is planning, plain and simple. Whether you're planning, you have kids and you're going on vacation, or you're going on a road trip, planning. Whether you're going to an all-inclusive resort, it's planning. Whether you're going on a business trip, it's planning. I travel a lot for work, and there are times when I drive and I travel, and I can bring my own food. What I do is I find hotels that have a kitchen in it, or ones that have a maybe bigger than a mini fridge in it. But what I also do is I scout out supermarkets near my hotel. Not to be so rigid, but just to know that I can have my basics, my non-negotiables. And I always build my day around my non-negotiables. Sometimes I'll bring them with me. My non-negotiables are protein powders, maybe a meal replacement powder, some oatmeal, just to have the basics. I know those are there for me. And then when I go out for lunches and client dinners, to Whitney's point, I can't know what they're putting, what kind of fats they're putting in. I can guess what kind of fats they are, but I ask. I ask if they can do X, Y, or Z for me. Can you make this without oil? Can you make this without butter? Can you steam the vegetables? And they do. You just have to ask. Don't be afraid to ask. Also, don't be afraid to stand out, or be a contrarian to what everybody else is eating. I've been out to steakhouses, and I like my steak too, but I'm not getting a 14-ounce or 16-ounce fillet. I like steak, but I'll get like the petite fillet. I will get the asparagus. And what's interesting is when you go out on business trips, you often get, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? There's peer pressure. Even when you go on vacation with extended family, there's peer pressure. Why are you doing that? You can have a piece of cake. Why can't you just have that? You can have a cookie. Well, yeah, sure I can. But it's about my goals, and it's about staying on track. I do have a sweet tooth. My favorite indulgence is, it's going to sound corny, but it's Dairy Queen ice cream, soft serve vanilla ice cream with rainbow sprinkles. That's my thing. Rainbow sprinkles. Yes, I am that boring. Um, but but I'll have an indulgence every now and then. I'm not going to feel guilty about it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan. I'm going to plan, and I hate to use the cliche failing to plan. Failing to plan is a planning to fail, and that's true. Whether you're going with kids, I've traveled to all-inclusive resorts for work. I know it's a hardship, and I see what goes on in all-inclusive resorts. And to Amanda's point, plates after plates, and they get back up and they go to the buffet. So, her words really echoed with me. It's put a plate together, put a sampling together. There's like 1,000 things at the buffet. You don't need to put all 1,000 on there, but maybe pick a little bit of things that you are interested in tasting. Maybe it's something that you've never had before, something that you've been craving. Have it, but don't have plates full. Uh,
Yeah.
and if you're going to go out to a steakhouse, go enjoy it, but just focus on the protein first and foremost. That should be the cornerstone. And also, don't let people make you feel bad about your choices. That peer pressure is real, but it doesn't have to be the end all be all of your happiness. You can just say to them, you know what? This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. But also don't be so rigid that you get home and like, damn, I wish I would have. Because the regret is going to come in, and the regret is going to then foster or fire or fuel the next trip. And that you might
Right.
then go completely the opposite end of the spectrum because I denied, versus I had a little sampling. That's okay.
Yeah.
Samplings are
Yeah.
good. Um, and don't feel that pressure. And just remember, why are you doing what you're doing? That why, that North Star that you're following is your guiding light. And just remember why you're doing what you're doing.
Sure. That's definitely true because people say things, but they're not the ones that are going to be dealing with things when you get back home, that you feel guilty for what you did and you feel, the guilt goes both ways. Do I feel guilty that I didn't have something? Do I feel guilty? What is your goal? And if you come back and you're like, you know what? I stayed with it and it didn't matter what people said to me and I still stayed with it. It'll make you really proud. So the next time that you're going, like Amanda always says, now there is evidence that you are able to do it. So once you have done it once and you see, I did it, I still had a good time, I enjoyed a little bit, but I was able to achieve what I wanted to achieve and I can keep going on my goals. And then I come back and it's like, I just pick up where I left off.
One of the things also to think about when we would go on family vacations is you plan your itinerary. So
Yeah.
plan like where you're going to go and what you're going to see. Also look for restaurants. Look for where you're going to plan your food itinerary. Have options just in case a place is closed or that you can't get a reservation somewhere. Have those options in the back of your hand. Or back pocket, not your hand,
Wherever you want to put
pocket. Um, but also be flexible. Like life is going to throw challenges at you. Travel is going to be challenging. Be flexible. And I don't remember if it was Megan who said, worry about what you can control.
Yeah.
And just what you can't control, just think about your response to that. And don't let it make you spiral out of controls, no pun intended. But let it guide you. Anyway.
For sure. Awesome. Awesome. All right, Calvin Masters.
Yeah.
Last it up.
All right. So I think the theme's pretty common. I can kind of see it here that it's basically, if you just kind of simplify this, you look at it as try to do as close as you can to what you're normally doing, but give yourself a little leisure on it, and not be too hard on yourself. When I'm looking at vacations, I'm really looking at it very individualized, depending on who the person is. And it's what we want to achieve when they're on vacation, because when you do it right, you can most likely come back and have a big weight drop. And it's sometimes that requires more food. Sometimes that requires taking a break from tracking. Depends on the person. If I have a competitor, they're going to follow the plan. They're going to do all the things. They're going to have a fridge in that hotel. They're going to do the Instacart. They're going to have meals pre-made from a place that pre-makes meals. Whatever it takes to be able to do that, and that needs to be arranged ahead of time, or they're not going to succeed. They have to hit that mark. That mentality in that little world is there's no vacation from something when you have a goal, so you can still enjoy your time. At the end of the day, the food doesn't control your life. It's just a part of it. It's your fuel to keep going. So in that case, with them, it's a completely different approach, going into it. But when I'm looking at in terms of somebody going on vacation, I have to consider what is some of the things that's setting this person back. What's their hardships on losing weight? How can I actually get the most out of this vacation for them? And in a lot of cases, people are really stressed out. They're just stressed out. And if you think about it, vacation is just taking a break from the norm and going and getting in a different element and just unwinding. So if there's somebody that's under the thumb all the time and stressed, and then I come out and tell them you have this rigid plan and you have to do this, have to do this, now their stress is still up here. They're still there, but they're trying to have fun, but they're so focused on, and I have clients that are like this that do not want to screw up, and they will uber focus on that. And then they come back and they're still stressed, and weight's probably the same, whatever. But so depending on the person, like if I have somebody that's stressed and they're going on a cruise, and I've had this just recently happen, a guy I'm working with that I know his cortisol is running and I know how he works. And so when I told him, I said, go on your cruise. I said, have fun. I said, I don't want you to log anything, nothing. I just want you to focus on trying to get sleep more than usual. Have some fun. Don't overeat just because the food's there. Just eat within your limits, and to where you know what you should be eating. Make sure to have protein in each meal, but enjoy some foods that you don't normally eat, but just don't overdo it. But if you don't have fun and if you don't eat some foods that you enjoy, I'm going to be mad at you when you get back. And so he came back and had one of his biggest weight drops when he came back, and he also didn't train, and that was part of the whole thing of looking at things with him. And that when you have a person that's overstressed and they're training and they have a tendency, A-type personality, and they're pushing harder in the gym, sometimes they need to have that deload. So the approach that I take a lot of time is actually prepping them the week ahead before the vacation. In a lot of cases, what I'll do is I'll push them a little harder. I'll pull the carbs back that week, and maybe even drop the fats a little bit. And I'll have them do a little extra in the gym. So then when they go on vacation, they've depleted a little bit. So now their body actually needs to have some extra carbs. And when that happens, you typically get a little drop in weight. So I expect them to not be perfect. So I kind of go with that mentality going in with them. But now there's other people on the other end of the spectrum that just need to have that plan. They need to be rigid, and they'll stress out if they don't have it. So with this, I typically will lay the plan out with them and go through the things that you guys were talking about, like, the refrigerator and getting the food ahead of time. Pack what you can before you go for the trip. Don't leave yourself vulnerable to the airport food, and do that. But when things are not perfect and you don't have the control of it, so what? Do the best you can, but do not stress over this when you're gone because you're going to miss the idea of what a vacation's all about. So in most cases, people come back either the same weight or less when I take that approach, but it has to be kind of specific to the person. So typically what I'll have them do is just find some easily accessible proteins, something that you have. The snacks that you have in your hotel room really are going to dictate the success you're going to have on your vacation. So if you get there and you look at what you bought, guess what's going to happen on your vacation? You already signed, sealed, and delivered it. You wrote it, you own it now, So I understand that when you're on vacation, most people don't just relax and sit by the pool like they're supposed to, whatever, and relax. They're out walking, they're out sightseeing, they're trying to make the Uber, they're trying to make this excursion and this. They're running around, but they don't realize how many steps they're getting, how active they actually are. So now they take off, they leave, and now they're starving. And all of a sudden they're out and they don't have control of the elements. They have a bunch of restaurants that smell really good, have this great food, and they're just starving. So in this case, bringing healthy snacks with you. This doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but Ziploc bags with carrots and celery and things to munch on while you're there, understanding that you're probably going to need more food and you're going to have these moments where you want to be able to kind of control that hunger when you're there. And it's the preparation of just having those little things so that when you do get to a restaurant, you don't just blow it out and do it, because anybody's vulnerable to that. When you're starving, your thought process changes completely, the same as it does when you're drinking. So that's a whole nother thing to think about when you're there. Another hack too is to bring protein powder. And I would recommend just do it in snack size Ziploc bags, have it prepackaged, and just throw a bunch of them in there. And you're probably going to eat less meals throughout the day than you would at home, because it's just how it works: breakfast, lunch, dinner. And I would recommend having either a scoop or a half a scoop of protein in your water right before you eat each meal, because most likely you're going to fall short on protein when you're out. And when you do that, it actually helps you feel a little bit more satiated when you go, and then you have your protein and you're less hungry when you go in. But it's also reminding you when you do that, hey, I actually do have a plan. I can do this. And it gives you a little bit more confidence going into it. So just doing that one simple thing of having that protein powder before each meal when you're on vacation can be a game changer for you. Just that one simple thing. And lots of water when you're there. That's another thing is people have a tendency when they're out to drink a lot less water because they're moving around, but they are moving a lot and they need more hydration. And when you're thirsty, you're hungry. So it's constant water, constantly drinking water, try to control the appetite and stay hydrated, so, and
Yeah.
all the other things that everybody else here said too,
Yeah.
those are some great nuggets.
Yeah, all really good points and all really good tips. And I think that there was something besides the planning, besides, everything everybody was saying, is just really always coming back to that. How am I going to feel when I come back? How am I going to feel when I get started? And if I've totally stopped the train, what's it going to take to restart it? Because I had someone like that too. She was super stressed out. Um, she's an accountant, was crazy tax season, months on end, just being busy, busy, busy. She finally got on this vacation. So because she was so stressed the whole time, she goes on vacation and it was just she needed the release. But people in their minds think if I eat the food, that'll make me feel better. But reality is when you eat all the food and do all the things, it's temporary that you're going to feel a moment. And then it's going to be so much worse when you get back and you get on going, why did I even do that? So it's really kind of keeping that in the forefront. And I know Amanda can kind of tie this all together with a little bow. Because this is something that I see all the time when people do it. They don't look at the vacation for just being present, just being there with your family, just being there with your friends, or if you're there for work, like it's just a different location that you're working. It's not something that means everything else in your life has to be kind of thrown to the wayside.
Yeah.
Amanda, did you want to tie this back up with a bow?
Sure. I think, most of what we're talking about is planning, but it really comes down to the mindset. If you're going on vacation thinking this is a free for all and I get to do whatever I want, first of all, nowhere in any plan are you allowed to do whatever you want whenever you want. So the concept that we're using, a vacation or a trip as an excuse, because let's be real, that's what it is, an excuse to indulge. Well, you don't need an excuse to indulge. You have to indulge smartly, but you don't need to have like this opportunity that's designated for this type of indulgence. And it's really just getting your brain to wrap around the fact that you can both enjoy yourself and not give yourself access to absolutely everything you want. Those things are not mutually exclusive. In listening to, Whitney and Megan, David, like one of the things that David was saying was about the peer pressure, because most people don't go on vacation alone. So you're going to be on vacation with other people who chances are they are not doing what you're doing. So both keep in mind that they are not on the plan that I am on. Therefore, our behavior is going to be different. That means if your spouse is not on a health or weight loss journey and they want to eat their face off, that's up to them. You don't need to join them on that. Along the lines of that peer pressure, the most important thing I tell my clients is if somebody's picking on your healthy behaviors, it's because you triggered their insecurity around their unhealthy behaviors. So what does that mean? It means if somebody's saying, oh, you can have a piece of cake, what they're really saying is, I'm having a piece of cake. Why don't you have a piece of cake? You should have a piece of cake.
Join
If
me.
you don't have a piece of cake, then I can't have a. None of that is real. It's all fabricated. So remember where other people are coming from as well. The fact that you are being diligent and you are showing the forethought and the strategy is threatening to their disorganized eating behavior. And then the other thing, as far as like, how do I indulge? How much do I indulge? Everybody is at a different place in their journey. So I tell my clients all the time who are just starting, they're in their first couple months. Maybe this is the first trip they've been on versus I'm 8 years at goal. So I've been on a handful of trips where I've learned how to navigate and I've picked up tips along them. But you don't get to 8 years of experience without first having that first trip where guess what? You're probably going to make a mistake or two. But
Yep.
nobody, Calvin, Brooke, none of us as coaches are ever looking at someone and being like, you were on vacation, you screwed up by having that one meal. Like, shaking their finger. No, like now if you come back like 15 pounds heavier, we have to talk about something, right? Somewhere there was a discrepancy. And at the end of the day, it's about remembering where you are in your goal. So for someone who's just starting, maybe you need to be a little bit more strict because
Right.
you don't have your sea legs yet. I actually just had a client who's been with me a long time, but she's traveling is new to her. And she went to the airport and I told her, I said, if you have any issues whatsoever, text me, we'll talk. And she never does because she doesn't want to bother me, but that's a whole different podcast. But I get a text with an SOS and I was like, call me, we'll talk it through. She's very upset because there's nothing to eat in the airport and she doesn't know how to handle it and she's just going to have some pizza. And I'm like, hold on, walk me through everything that's in that airport right now. So I spent 10 minutes on the phone with her and we found a good option for her. After she got off the phone, she handled the rest of the trip herself, but she was willing to reach out to me when she felt overwhelmed. And she said, I normally never would have bothered you, but I think it made all the difference in my trip because you showed me that there was a way to figure out what to eat, even when I was overwhelmed. And she was at like a small town airport. There was nothing there for her. But, we found a Mexican place. She got some plain rice. We got some chicken, we figured it out. So at the end of the day, part of preparing is talk to your coach before you leave.
Yep.
Set up a game plan. Every time that particular girl goes on a trip, we game plan the week before and we figure out what she's bringing with her, what she can get when she's there. We talk about Instacart. We talk about hotel rooms. That's what we're there for, is to help facilitate that. So part of your strategy and part of that planning is using the skills available to you. And that's the benefit of having us as coaches. And I know that I'm not the only one who would, in a heartbeat, get on the phone with someone who is freaking out because there's no food in an airport. That's kind of just what we do. So if keeping your goal in mind isn't enough, if planning isn't enough, remember that you have support in this. And that's one of the reasons that we have the group calls. That's one of the reasons that we do our check-ins with our clients, is to make sure that people know that there are going to be challenging things in life that will make it hard to implement your plan. However, hard does not mean impossible. So talk to one of the veterans who've been doing it a while and see what you can learn, see what you can pick up to make this trip a little bit easier than the last trip. Because Brooke knows my Roman Empire is that I don't care if you fall off. I don't care if you had a giant Jim Dandy Sunday while you were at Disney World. Does not matter to me. But I need you to recover from that faster than the last time you fell off. That's how we gain success. So that's really like the be all end all, is keep your goals in mind, plan, have a strategy, and utilize your support.
Yep. And definitely learning from things, learning from what you've done. Like the part of having sustainable fat loss or sustainable whatever type of transformation you are trying to achieve is learning how to navigate through the hard. Like navigating through things, because there will always be challenges, but you have someone here to show you how to do it. And just like with the job, like when you first get there and you're trying to learn, like you're not going to be real good at your job. But after a while, you learn the skills, you learn how to do things, and then you'll help maybe a new person. So it is the same thing, is that over time, just like in any situation, you learn how to do things and you learn how to do them better and you become more efficient. And like Amanda said, if things do fall off, you just get back quicker every single time. And if you do that, that consistency piece is what gets you to that end point. That's what gets you to the place that you can sustain this type of lifestyle. And it's not a diet. It's just learning how to adjust and balance to still have some fun food and fuel food. So
yeah, and it's knowing that you got a coach when you go on this. This is where we shine. This is where we help people, because a lot of people don't know. And they go and they try to take it on themselves, but it's the same as anything else. If you want to see change, you have to change what you're doing.
Yep.
And this is our place to help guide you to do that, because, like Amanda said, we've done it several times and we've helped several people to go through it at the same time. But I will say my favorite question is when somebody asks me, so I'm going on vacation, what do I eat?
Mhm.
Because I'm like, well, where are you going? Do they have the same foods? Is this another country? If it's in this country and you're asking me what to eat, I'm going to give you a simple answer. The same thing you're eating right now in a different state. So don't overthink it. It's really just a matter of just go in there and just try to weather the storm and just keep things as close as you can to what your original plan is, but try to enjoy yourself at the same time. You're not a prisoner of your food, just own it and get good at it.
Yeah.
So
For sure. And a lot of those hotels have some good breakfast. We just went somewhere and they made egg white omelets right there. They had an egg white omelet station. They had a thing of oatmeal was our carb. So it's just like finding those foods that fit, finding the hotels that have the easy breakfast, things like that, and knowing what to do when you're out. So awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Master Your Metabolism. If you found value in today's episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who could use a little guidance in their health journey. And if you're ready to take the next step, head over to www.mastersfitnesscoaching.com. There you can book a free call right from that site so we can chat about your goals and how we can help. And don't forget to join our Facebook group where we share coaching tips, support, tricks to help you stay on track and keep making progress. You don't have to do this alone. We're here with you every step of the way. So until next time, stay consistent, stay kind to yourself, and keep mastering your metabolism.